Urgent olumsuz reaction. This is breaking. Chinese soldiers captured in Ukraine. North Korea breaches South Korea. This is like 2 weeks ago. But still, this is like, why doesn't this get traction? Like, I don't get it. There is Chinese soldiers in Ukraine. Like, I guess anything matters anymore. Like, come on, right? Like, this is one of those things like you just know is true, but you never have any evidence before evidence comes. And like, yeah, okay, kind of makes sense, right? But then again, it could be something like, oh, wait a minute, they're not really from China. They're just Chinese origin. Or they could just say that, right? It's not that hard to just like deny, like, oh, these are not one of ours. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting. This is by China Enforcer. It's been a while since I watched news from it. So let's do it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I know which I will react to more. Obviously, I like watching things happening around the globe. It's really interesting how people's response are. Yeah, but it's never good news, is it? So let's do this one.
Good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video. And today we have very big news coming out of North Korea, China, the Middle East, and Ukraine. But by far our biggest piece of news of the day is coming out of Ukraine, as we have gotten word today from President Zelensky that Chinese nationals have allegedly been found fighting on the soil of Ukraine for the Russian side, and this is causing a major diplomatic incident between China and Ukraine today, and this is certainly one to watch. We also have big news as well between the United States and Iran that talks are allegedly going to take place over the next few days or so between those two countries to prevent a major regional war from breaking out in the Middle East. We also have big news on another front that Turkey is still moving equipment down to central Syria as we speak, and we have footage of that today to show you. And we also have news on another front, on the Chinese front of news, that the US and China trade war is heating up so badly that the United States has now put 104% retaliatory tariffs on China as a result of recent escalations. And we also have news out of North Korea that some North Korean soldiers crossed the border into South Korea. There were warning shots fired by the South Koreans, and there's a major border incursion today on the Korean Peninsula. So with that, we have a lot of news to cover pretty much everywhere today, so let's jump into our first post, which goes to War Translated. And this is our biggest story of the day right now. We're getting big news out of Ukraine today that the UAF claims to have captured 2 Chinese citizens in the Donetsk region, which fought as a part of the Russian Federation, and there are documents of these prisoners, bank cards, and personal data indicating they're from China, and the president instructed the foreign minister to immediately contact Beijing and find out how China is going to react to this, and Zelensky said, quote unquote, "We have information that there are much more than just 2 Chinese citizens in the occupiers' units, and we're just now finding out all of these facts." So this is truly a bombshell piece of...
I mean, that's like one of those things, obviously. That wouldn't just be 2. If there is 2, there's going to be 20. I think China would just like claim like, oh, they are mercenaries. We have relation with Russia. They could have gotten in that way. We don't know. Something like that.
News right here. There are allegedly, according to Zelensky, many more than just 2 Chinese citizens fighting on behalf of the Russians, and this could indicate direct involvement by the Chinese government in this war against Ukraine. So, of course, that is a very, very big conclusion to make, but based on what we're seeing right now from Zelensky and hearing from these soldiers, it sounds like it could be much bigger than actually reported as of this moment, so we're certainly keeping an eye on that. But we do have a video here of the guy that was captured, who is allegedly a Chinese national, basically snitching on his fellow comrades in this Russian unit. So let's take a look at the video and see what he's talking about. Okay, so he appears to be describing maybe a drone battle. He's doing a lot of sounds and a lot of movements, and actually it looks like he's snitching to the 10th degree, actually. He's going through all the motions. He's telling everything. So if there's anything to learn from this individual, he's definitely going to spill the beans on it. He's telling pretty much everything that happened right before his...
I like how he enforces putting emotion into this one. Like, oh, look at that. He's just going to town with this one, right? Not holding anything back.
Capture. So that is good for the Ukrainians, because they can get all the intel they need to figure out exactly what's really happening with this Chinese national allegedly being here on Ukrainian soil. So here we have it. This is the captured guy allegedly from China right here on the video. But with that, we also learned some more information here in our next post, which goes to Max24. And this is actually some more statements from President Zelensky out of Ukraine about these alleged Chinese nationals being on their soil. And we see here that President Zelensky revealed the details of the capture of Chinese soldiers. He said Ukrainian soldiers engaged in combat with 6 Chinese soldiers in the Donetsk region, after which 2 of the Chinese citizens were captured, and that was one of them we just saw in the video. And he pointed out an important difference. If the North Koreans were in the Kursk region, then the Chinese are already directly on Ukrainian territory. So that is a pretty big revelation right there, if that turns out to be indeed 100% true. So we're certainly watching this one, because if this is indicated that China sent these guys here to fight, and so far the only other country which has direct involvement right now, which would be in the Asian region, would be the North Koreans. So we are seeing here that the Chinese are potentially involved as well, at least according to President Zelensky. So jumping into our next post, this one goes to the Kyiv post.
But then again, like I said, it's like one of those things. How you gonna hold somebody accountable? They could really throw people under the bus saying like, okay, we didn't know anything about this. They were their own people. They are mercenaries or something like that.
And as a result of all this chaos from this capture of these alleged Chinese nationals, Ukraine has now summoned the chief diplomat of China to condemn the reported participation of Chinese military personnel in the war against Ukraine and to demand an explanation, according to the foreign minister of Ukraine. So they are escalating this to the top level officials in China to figure out exactly what's going on and also condemn this activity that they're currently seeing right now from China. So right now the debate is, are these individuals that are currently fighting in Ukraine that are Chinese, are they mercenaries or are they sent by the Chinese government? That is the big question, and that is what Ukraine's trying to find out from the Chinese diplomats as to exactly what the situation is. So we're waiting to hear the answer to that, but certainly a large situation. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to the Kyiv Post once again. And we've also gotten another big revelation from Zelensky today on a different front, that Zelensky confirms today that there is the presence of Ukrainian troops in Russia's Belgrad region. They're actually in Belgrad, Russia right now fighting against the Russians. And Zelensky said the war must return to where it came from. So once again, they're trying a Kursk-style invasion of Belgrad this time. They just moved a little bit down the border of Russia right into Belgrad, and now they're going right back in.
I don't know why they're still doing that, like Kursk thing. Did anything came from it? Like, I don't know. But then again, like, you have to do something. What else you gonna do, right? Like, you're fighting, right? Like, you're fighting this giant, right? Russia has a lot of people. They can just, like, conscript a lot of people, get help from North Koreans. Like, what is happening? Like, there's not much of progress happening. Not to mention in the world stage, like, you're not getting much help now because US changed leadership. And, yeah, I don't know. At this point, like, you have to do something. What else are you going to do?
Into the Russian territory. So Zelensky confirmed today they are moving in, and it sounds like they're making pretty good progress, at least according to what we're seeing on the deep state maps. So very good to see, and once again, more confirmation from Zelensky. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Insider Paper. So let's move away from our Ukrainian news for just a second and jump into our Middle Eastern news, because right now there's big revelations on the Iranian front of things of what's going on in the Middle East. So right now we hear that
touch our boats 2.0. Yeah, Iran's like, yeah, let's talk peace talk. Yeah, we don't want like obliterated on Navy 2.0.
3 Iranian officials told the New York Times that Iran and the United States are planning to meet in Oman on Saturday for indirect talks, and Iran had told Washington that it is open and willing to hold a direct talks if the first round goes well, which is a clear shift in their position. So it looks like Iran is getting a little bit scared, and they're now at least willing to entertain indirect talks for right now.
US put B-2 bombers in like one of the islands in Indian Ocean. There was a news like, oh, Iran's radars can detect F-35. And US like, can it detect B-2s? Because we have those. Yeah, so that shit intensified.
Now, but it's not very clear if it's going to get anywhere. And so far, we've very hopeful statements from U.S. officials about this really going anywhere. And of course, the Iranians have been making wild statements in the public about how they want to basically destroy the United States and run us down. So this is not very hopeful right here. At least they're speaking. That's a good sign, but I really doubt anything's going to come out of it of any material sense. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to open source intel. And the United States president actually weighed in on this situation because, of course, he was asked about it by the media.
Man, if China goes to war against U.S., then Chinese people in Chinese street claims we are going to crush United States. People will be like, are you sure? Is this really happening? Even when it's China. How is Iran claiming that? You know, when they say, oh, we are going to do this, and all the Iranian people like, really, we're going to do that? Okay, I guess it's happening.
About what he feels is the situation, and so far we saw a reporter ask the U.S. president, a lot of people think those talks won't lead anywhere because the Iranians will never truly commit, and if diplomacy fails, is the United States, under your leadership, prepared to take military action to destroy Iran's nuclear program and remove the threat? The U.S. president responded, I think that is a possibility, and if the talks fail, Iran is going to be in great danger, and I hate to say it, great danger, because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And the reporter said, so is that a yes? And the president responded, you know, it's a complicated formula because Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's all there is to it. They just can't have one. So, of course,
Trump's like, I'm loco, man. I just put tariffs like that, son. You don't know what I'm going to do. I just announced F-47. People didn't know if it's going to be NGAD. I came to power at F-47. What you going to do now? Right? I'm going to send all, not just B-2s, all the B-21 we already have. I'm going to send them. People think B-21 isn't out yet. Like we already have in service. I'm going to send all those shit. Let's see in a matter of a few hours. Yeah, Iran don't want to like test Trump. You can have many opinions on Trump, but Trump can be aggressive. You don't want to risk that.
There appears to be a general commitment to military action if these talks are not successful on the Iranian side. So we could still be looking at perhaps a major regional war breaking out between the US and Iran coming up very soon, and Iran is preparing for this all the way. They've put all their military equipment on high alert, and they've also been helping the proxy forces in several different regions of the Middle East shoot down Reaper drones that the United States is flying for intel flights. So certainly the Iran situation is still very tense, so we'll be keeping an eye on that one as well, and that's a very big development happening as of this morning. So jumping into our next post here and moving on to a different front of news, we have a post from the Israel radar, and today we've gotten more visual confirmation of large Turkish military convoys entering central Syria today, according to recent reports. And despite Israeli threats, Turkey is serious about establishing a military foothold. And as of yesterday, we heard statements from both the Turks and the Israelis that they do not want to go to war with one another, but at the same time, Israel is still committed to not letting Turkey take over the former bases of the Assad regime inside of central Syria. So it's not really clear at this point what's going to take place, because of course they don't want war, but it looks like the Turks are still moving in quite heavily, which could provoke something out of necessity from the Israeli side. So let's take a look and see the equipment moving in. And there you have it, a bunch of military equipment being moved in on trucks by the Turkish side. And as you can see, there are some of their Turkish vehicles right there moving in. I don't know the name of that vehicle actually, but here comes a semi-truck.
But does Israel want Turkey to be a problem? I mean, how powerful is Turkey? Like, I mean, I've seen of news like how Turkey is working on the 5th generation plane, this and that. How powerful is Turkey? Sometimes I wonder. Do Israel want that issue? Like, Israel already have enough issues, right? So you can, like, that there could be major security issue for Israel if like they took over the bases. So who knows where in the priority this stands for Israel? So it's like everywhere there is like war now. Everywhere war is sparking. Like, because of the recent event, India-Pakistan could be an issue. Like, okay, great, 2 nuclear power, why the fuck not? That gonna happen. Let's hope that doesn't, right? The terrorists, I'm hoping that it turns out the terrorists were working on their own, because if there's a link to Pakistan, like that's obvious war. People are too pissed off right now. And now like Turkish, Israel thing, great. Iran, US, Ukraine, Russia is already happening. China might say, fuck it, Taiwan is mine now. There you go. Might as well be global war, because everything is fighting now.
Truck with one of those boxes on the back, which could be a mobile command center or perhaps carrying cargo. And we do have some more trucks moving in as well. They're in one big convoy, and these are allegedly the Turks moving into central Syria. And also that guy right there almost swerved right over that motorcycle. That was quite crazy. But the rest of them are all coming in right here, and this is visual confirmation that they're once again still moving into central Syria on the Turkish side. So there is that video showing that confirmation. But with that, it's now time to move on from our Middle Eastern news and on to our next post here, which goes to First Squawk. And this is moving into another very large piece of news breaking out this morning. The China-US trade war is getting out of hand extremely quickly, and this morning we have heard that the Chinese Commerce Ministry says that if the US side is bent on having its own way, the Chinese side will follow it to the end. So the Chinese are not backing down, and once again their Commerce Ministry officials are coming out and saying that they are willing to take this as deep as it needs to go in order to get their way, and the United States is generally saying the same thing as well. So right now neither side, China nor the United States, is willing to bend.
Yeah, this is the first time where like, oh, China's getting powerful. Oh, China has the biggest navy now by number. And all this shit, right? Oh, China's getting close to United States now. First country in like near a century. First country near in century is getting close to United States in power. This was all talks. There was never actually physical thing. Economical war is the first thing that came close to like, let's see whose side is more stronger. And this is one of those things. China's not going to back down. He's like, I'm going to flex too. You want to put tariffs on me, I'm going to put tariff on you type of shit is happening, right? No side is going to back down. If US backs down, it just shows like, okay, US is weaker than China now. Like that's like a crown, right? Like US gave up the crown type of shit. If China backs down, China looks weak. Like, what's the point of all this? Like, you're still not at that level. So no side is going to back down. Like, there has to be a central deal, because I don't see anyone backing down. US puts 150% tariffs. China's going to do similar shit. And they already did that
on this issue, which indicates this is going to get much worse before it gets better. So that's what we're hearing from the Chinese side. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to unusual whales. And we can see that China is also taking retaliatory measures inside of China in regards to U.S. companies operating on their soil. And we've heard today that China is to investigate intellectual property benefits of U.S. companies operating in China due to the U.S. tariffs. And if you know anything about China, that is extremely hypocritical, because China is known to have a major problem with the theft of intellectual property from the United States. So for them to say this about us, that's quite crazy. That's very hypocritical, actually, and quite crazy to hear, but it just shows you
It's not about hypocrisy or like, what are you shame them? Like that's not how it works. This is a threat. Like we're gonna remove a lot of your like infrastructure in a way. This is that type of threat. It's not about like shaming. They don't care, right? Oh, this is China being hypocritical. So they're gonna be yeah. I have power to do this. What you gonna do? Type of shit, right? I don't know.
You that China is taking retaliatory measures to get even for these recent U.S. tariff measures that are being put on their country. So they're getting upset and they're taking action to try to get even with us, and we can see that right there in the post. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Jakai Heinrich. And this is the big daddy piece of news right here when it comes to the whole China-U.S. situation. We're hearing that China has missed the deadline to remove the retaliatory tariffs that they placed on rare minerals going to the United States, and now the U.S. has imposed an additional 50% tariff on China, bringing the total to 104% on China.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna stop here. This is an old news. It went even higher than that. Yeah, so Chinese soldier captured in Ukraine. Like, is this some have to do something with the tariff? You don't know. Like I said that, like you're like, what you talking about, Willis? But the point is, you never know how these people think at this global stage, how they do politics. You have no idea, right? Like they could be pissed off a tariff. They could retaliate by helping Russia. Who the fuck knows? I don't know, man. Right? But then again, Trump is like, okay, I don't care. Like, okay, I'm not going to help out Ukraine. But US were helping Ukraine. US and the West in general were helping Ukraine. So China could still do, I don't know, man. But obviously they would do low key where like they don't have any responsibility. Like they got captured. Oh, that's not one of us. They're mercenaries. But it like sends the message like, okay, we're going to do this if you do this type of shit. Global politics is like very complex, right? Only people who are there would realize what shit is happening there. Right, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.